Hello, the world. Welcome to Sarajevo, broadcasting live from the OHR. Just to start off a little bit, currently have 0 viewers at the moment, so we'll see as soon as some people log on. Here we go. So, hello everyone, my name is Evan Bruning, and welcome to this live behind-the-scenes edition of International Co-op Abroad. I'll be talking to you guys about what I'm doing here in Sarajevo and how I got here, what the current setup is, and what I could do on a day-to-day basis. So just to begin, my concentration is International Affairs and Economics with minors in Political Science, History, and Arabic. It's currently my second co-op. My first one was in D.C. Last year working for Senator Bernie Sanders, and now I'm doing the full abroad experience. I've been here for about 2.5 months now, and 2.5 more to go. So what I'm doing is I'm working in the Office of the High Representative here in Bosnia in their Political and Economic Department as a political intern. And so just to talk about how I ended up here to begin with, last summer I did a study abroad program in the Balkans led by Professor Dennis Sullivan in his Dialogue of Civilizations to this particular region of the world. So I spent about 2 weeks here in Sarajevo, a week traveling around Bosnia, and then 2 more weeks in Belgrade learning about the history of the region, meeting with government officials, professors, historians, journalists, and so on and so forth, and really diving into the really complex and political history of this country and the war that happened here in the 90s and what the current situation is here today. So this time around I was applying for co-ops, specifically international ones, for this fall, and Northeastern has an internship program here at the Office of the High Representative. So I sent in my resume, went through the process, and I ended up here as a result. So it's been a blast so far, mostly thanks to the Northeastern Presidential Global Scholarship, which has definitely helped with my financial situation and being able to afford a full abroad experience. So now you may be wondering what exactly the Office of the High Representative is and what we do here. So to talk a little bit more about that, we're going to mosey on down the hallway to talk to Mark Bowen, who is the Senior Coordinator and Planning Advisor in our strategy unit. If at any point you have questions about what I do here, what Bosnia is like, what the co-op process is, I'd be more than happy to answer them. I just got a question about if I have been to Mostar, and actually I'm going this weekend. So it's going to be a blast. In the meantime, we're going to come on down here, and we're going to talk to Mark about the OHR. Hey Mark, how are you doing?
I'm alright.
You good? So, if you mind telling our viewers from all across the globe what OHR is, and what the history is, and where we are now?
The office of the the position of the High Representative is established under Annex 10 of the Dayton Peace Agreement, also known as the General Framework Agreement for Peace. That effectively ended the hostilities in Bosnia-Herzegovina in 1995. The High Representative is the senior representative of the international community charged with overseeing the implementation of the civilian aspects of the Dayton Peace Agreement. After the first High Representative was in place not even 2 years, movement on implementation of the Dayton Peace Agreement wasn't proceeding at a satisfactory pace due to a lot of obstruction by the various factions on the ground. So in December 1997, the Peace Implementation Council gave the High Representative additional authorities, including the authority to enact legislation. And with that authority, the High Representative has enacted a lot of key reforms in the country that have helped get the country back on its feet and stabilize it in the post-war period. And some of those key reforms include things that you wouldn't even think of that would be necessary, but seemingly small things, but important things like establishing and introducing a common currency for the country, introducing common license plates, car license plates, because before each of the three sides that fought in this war, everybody had their own license plate, and if you were in the wrong part of town with the wrong license plate, you might have a problem. So High Representative enacted a lot of those changes, common ID system, common issuance of travel documents, and things like that. Then later we introduced the first set of property laws that enabled people who lost their homes during the war to claim to get their property back, and that's been one of the big successes in Bosnia-Herzegovina that hasn't seen in a lot of post-war situations, which is that most people, in fact I think it was 97% implemented, the people who claimed their property were able to get it back. The small percentage, sorry I'm going off, the small percentage of people who couldn't get it back was due to some legal technicalities and whatnot. And then the High Representative has also introduced judicial reform, established the indirect tax authority in the country, which is how the country gets its revenues for funding the common institutions and funding the entities and the regions of the country. That use of the bond powers, as I mentioned, this extraordinary authority, lasted, let's say, until about 2005. And after that, the international community wanted to change course a little bit and set Bosnia-Herzegovina off on its own. So since that time, the Office of the High Representative has only, in very few instances, used this extraordinary authority. High Representative remains as the senior representative of the international community, reporting to the UN Security Council twice a year on the progress that Bosnia-Herzegovina is making, and Peace Implementation Council meets twice a year to decide what's going to happen with the High Representative, with the Office of the High Representative, and so far haven't found that Bosnia-Herzegovina has met the conditions to close the office. So we're still here, but in more of a backseat role.
Yeah. So one of the more common questions we're getting is what the future of the High Representative here and what the game plan is for the next couple of years as Bosnia continues to move forward.
Well, as I said, the High Representative remains the main interpreter. Maybe I didn't say it, but I'll say it. He remains the main interpreter of the Dayton Peace Agreement. And even now, 20 years after signing the Dayton Peace Agreement, we're seeing challenges to the Dayton Peace Agreement, as we're seeing in an upcoming, or let's say an announced referendum that part of this country wants to hold, questioning not only the authority of the High Representative, but then, in that sense, indirectly challenging the Dayton Peace Agreement. So that's going to keep us here longer, as long as there are challenges like that. But nobody can say what will be in a year or in 2 years except the Peace Implementation Council. And for now, they've decided that we're here until June of next year at least, and then in February they will decide again.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Mark,
for
your time. It's a pleasure.
Good luck.
Thank you. Alright, hey guys, so now you know a little bit more about the OHR and what we do here in Bosnia. Just going to show you guys a little bit more around the office here. So, a lovely little map of Bosnia, which documents the entire region, including the two main entities that make up this country, the Federation of Bosnia and the Republika Srpska. As you can see, here's a bunch of different colored push pins on the map, and they're documenting the various strikes and mass protests that the country has experienced within the past couple of years. The Office of the High Representative has been very involved in monitoring and having a dialogue with these protesters, in order to get the country back on track. And so here's a good number of them here in Sarajevo, the capital of the Federation and of the country, and up here in Banja Luka, which is the capital of the Republika Srpska, and a few other places as well. There's Tuzla, and down there is Mostar. So the office. Now going back to where I work, just to tell you guys a little bit more about what I do here in my role as an intern in the political department here in OHR. So I have two main ongoing projects right now, one of which is putting together this nice handy-dandy economic background guide about Bosnia. Lots of economic charts, data, indicators, highlighting specific trends and percentages, so on and so forth. So one of the questions I was just asked was, is it hard to be away from the U.S. and out of my comfort zone? That's a very good question. And for the first month or so, it was a little difficult. You know, it's an entirely new country, very different culture and customs here in Bosnia as opposed to Boston. But I live with two local Bosnians as flatmates, and they were more than happy to show me around town and show me different restaurants around here, various cultural institutions, and I've really adapted and settled in here after 2.5 months of living in Sarajevo, and I really like it here. And I'm looking forward to spending the rest of the year here in Bosnia. Another question that was just asked is, what do the various colors on that map back there that we just saw represent? So the red push pins represented strikes, the blue push pins represented protests, and the yellow push pins represented really big protests. We'll just scamper back over here so you guys can see that again. So yeah, you'll notice the different colored pins here, and each one of them represents a different type of strike or protest that occurred over the past 2 or so years here in Bosnia. So, moving on to the other main project that I'm doing while I'm here in Sarajevo, I've been working on youth leadership development initiatives here in the country. So over the past couple of weeks, I've been going around and meeting with various NGOs, activist organizations, leadership development groups, groups from the European Union, Afghanistan. A bunch of Norwegians were here last week, and basically researching what current initiatives already exist here in Sarajevo and what the plan is for the future of these initiatives. As Mark kind of outlined, because of the war here in the 90s, the current political situation is mired in gridlock along ethnic tensions, and the current outlook is that it's not likely to change anytime soon, unfortunate as that may be. So one of the potential solutions to this is training the next generation of Bosnian leaders, and when they come into their own and assume key leadership positions throughout the country, they'll be able to help bring Bosnia forward to its future as a member of the Euro-Atlantic community. So I've been working on that and helping to put together some solid initiatives we can propose further down the line, and hopefully that'll bring this country forward. So yeah, that's mostly what I do here at my co-op. I'm having a wonderful time, and it's thanks to Northeastern's international co-op program I'm here right now. So love this opportunity. It's been fantastic. If you guys have any more questions, feel free to type away. Otherwise, we're nearing the end of this little live stream. Hope you've enjoyed it so far, and have found it to be very informative. Yeah, and international co-op is great. Dialogues are great. If any of you have the chance to study abroad or work abroad in a different country, highly recommend you take the opportunity to do so. It's mostly thanks to Northeastern I've had the chance to travel around a little bit in Europe and the Middle East. I also did a dialogue to Jordan 2 years ago, and I was in the Netherlands earlier this year on a Northeastern research grant, so thanks Provost for that. I just had a question about if I have done any other co-ops, and yes, last year I did a co-op working in Washington, D.C. for Senator Bernie Sanders from Vermont. I am also from Vermont, and so I got a chance to work in his DC office for 6 months. The man is currently running for president, and he's doing fairly well in the polls, so I'm excited to see where that goes. And but DC was also a lot of fun. It's a great time, and so I took classes for a year after that, and then I applied to go on co-op again, and now I'm here. Yeah. I just got another question about if I received the Presidential Global Scholarship, which I did. I applied for it, filled out a few essays, and Northeastern gave me a nice amount of money to come over here and live here in Sarajevo. It's definitely helped out a lot, especially since this internship happens to not pay me, so it definitely would not be possible without the Presidential Global Scholarship, and I'm really thankful for that and giving me the financial means to live over here. I just got asked another question about if this experience will help me in the classroom, and it definitely will. I study international affairs and economics with minors in political science, and this co-op applies directly to what I study in the classroom, especially when it comes to post-conflict reconciliation, as well as negotiation and peacemaking. Bosnia is a preeminent example in the field of international development, international diplomacy, especially the OHR as well. The OHR was a direct result of negotiations between the European Union, Russia, the United States, and many other major international countries who all came together to agree to a peace deal to help end the war here in the 90s. So it's definitely very relevant to what I study, and when I go back to classes in the spring, I'll be taking classes that are very much related to this, and this experience will prove to be very useful, especially when it comes to writing term papers and my general studies. So, that all said, hope you guys found this to be informative, and that you enjoyed this little behind-the-scenes look here in Bosnia. I do have to wrap up shortly because it's almost 5 o'clock here in the Balkans, but hope you all had a great time. I certainly did. And if you ever want to reach out in the future, I am also on Twitter at Evan Bruning. You can probably find my Husky email as well. And I'd be more than happy to answer any questions about international co-op or the Northeastern program or the Dialogue of Civilizations. Yeah, so thanks for tuning in, and hope you have a great rest of your day. This is Evan Bruning signing off.